Welcome back to Arise and Shine. Gone with the Wind premiered in 1939 and was the highest grossing movie of its time. But this epic historical romantic film also had a dark side because of the racial and sexual connotations it portrayed. Here with us today to discuss the film as it celebrates its 75th year is Mike Sargent from Arise on Screen and film historian Foster Hirsch. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So let's get right to it. So Gone with the Wind at its time was one of the, and still is, one of the highest grossing films?
It is. Even in adjusted dollars, it's made somewhere between $3 and $5 billion. And it was released 8 times by the studio. And it's even in the UK, it was 35 million people bought tickets for that film.
I think it's been seen by more than
any film ever.
Than any other film.
Pretty much.
It's been seen by more people than any other film. And it continues to get seen because its popularity
is seen over and
over and over again.
So what can we talk about in 1939? What was going on racially that made this movie, you know, so profound at its peak?
Well, there were a lot of things going on. I mean, this is 1939, so there was Jim Crow, you know, and a lot of that spilled over into the production of the film as well, just as in terms of, you know, it's pretty well known that the black actors were not originally allowed to use the same bathrooms as the white actors. And it was Clark Gable, actually, who railed against that and had that changed. So it goes all the way from the production of the film, things like that, to the premiere and things like that that we'll talk about. So this was not a time that black people were necessarily happy.
It's very pre-civil rights.
Yes, it is.
We can't
to give
look
you
at
perspective, Martin Luther King was 10 years old.
Wow. So that maybe this also helped to form, you know, and it shaped his ideals, is seeing something like this. Because I know as a child, for me, it definitely impacted me to look back on that period of time, especially seeing Hattie McDaniel, you know, and wondering like,
but oh my God. It's 2 periods of time. It's 1939, but it's also the time of the Civil War when the film is set. So we're looking at it from our perspective, 1939 Civil War. You have to have several historical hats on as you're watching the film.
Absolutely, and especially now, I'm sure as it's going to air again, you know, 2015, right? At the end of the year?
Sure. Well, 2014. This year.
I'm all
so
confused.
2014, 1939 Civil War, you have a lot of historical periods to keep in mind as you're watching the film.
It's one of my favorite films of all time, and one of the things I notice is a lot of the complacency it seems that the black actors had, or how they're being portrayed. They seem to have a lot of complacency with slavery and that time period.
They
Can you speak about that?
Those characters accept the situation. And it is a romanticized view of the plantation society. It is compared to 12 Years a Slave, for instance.
For instance, well, it's very romanticized, and I think that's a nice word to use. I mean, and it's written from the perspective of people who clearly couldn't feel what it was to be a slave. So there was no need to even have any kind of sympathy for them.
It was written by a white daughter of the South.
Correct. Who's well known for being a racist herself. I mean,
really?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who went to Smith and is well known at Smith that when she attended classes there, she refused to take classes with people of color.
Unbelievable. So that maybe that shows throughout. So Hattie McDaniel was the first African American to win an Oscar, you know, and we all know that she had to sit at the back of the auditorium.
In those days, the Oscars were at round tables. They weren't in theaters. And so she had to sit at a table in the back. When she won, her white cast actors, her members, stood up and cheered her. But they couldn't sit at the same table with her.
And that's very profound.
Well, it is profound. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of controversy as well at the premiere because from what I've read, you know, because I wasn't there, she was invited to the premiere, but it was revealed that the black actors wouldn't be able to sit with the white actors. Clark Gable made a big stink about it. Hattie McDaniel, being the class act she was, said, you know, I have something else to do, I won't come, and just avoided the whole problem.
Which at the time was gracious of her.
Incredibly gracious.
Incredibly
Unlike
gracious.
today where someone would be like, no, this is not, you know.
but it wouldn't happen today. It wouldn't happen today.
It happens in a different way. I mean, you know.
In a different way. But it wouldn't happen in that way.
No, it would not. So what are some of the behind-the-scenes drama? What can we share about, you know, what we know about what went on behind the scenes in Gone with the Wind?
Well, you know, we were talking about this. One of the great landmark qualities of the film is at the end, Rhett Butler says, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. It was shocking in 1939 for damn to be heard from the screen. It seems so innocent to us now.
But you were giving a little more history, so it was replaced? Is that?
Well, they were suggesting other ways, like, frankly, I don't care, which nobody would read with today. But, you know, like you said, it was very, you know, at the time, nobody could say something. It was shocking.
It was shocking, and also shocking, too, was the fact that it's not a happy ending. It doesn't end with a kiss and a clinch and they lived happily ever after.
No.
They don't.
No.
They separate.
And even in that, there's controversy because in the film, it's showing some kind of almost a rape, if you will, against Scarlett O'Hara. And then the next day, you know, she's happy and she's, you know, all fluttered about and I'm going to marry this man, you know, like her dreams.
Well, the sexuality between those characters is very candid and frank for that time. For the time. It's a very complex relationship.
Absolutely.
It was. As a matter of fact, one more thing I have to say is one of the other dramas behind the scenes was that the use of the N-word and sort of the glorification of the Ku Klux Klan, that was taken out, but that was under pressure from the NAACP.
Really?
You know, something Selznick, and it was in the novel, and he wanted to include, but they wanted to ban the film, and he didn't want more issues, more problems.
If you want glorification of the Klan, you got to see Birth of a
Birth
Nation.
of a Nation. That's
in
the
1915.
Ultimate. Yes,
that glorifies the Klan. This film doesn't go anywhere near it.
No,
unreal. So, each of you, what is your take on the film?
A masterpiece.
A masterpiece.
It's a great film. It's great Hollywood filmmaking.
Right.
It's the studio era at its climax. 1939
Absolutely.
was the famous year of glorious Hollywood movie making. This is a great film.
It's an epic, yes?
It's an epic. It's about what the impact of war on a family, as powerful a representation of what war can do to a family as I've ever seen in movies, really.
Well, I have to say I concur. I mean, it's a film that, you know, you have to take it in context. There are a number of things in it that you wouldn't like and that really could not probably fly today, but it does stand the test of time. You watch it, you're just as engaged as you were, and I have to say, the characters,
the acting,
the 3.5 hours, it really doesn't feel like 3.5 hours.
One of the things I want to hit on is something that we said off camera before we got on, which is about the role that Hattie wasn't happy. Do you know what I mean? She wasn't happy to play this role, and can we talk about that? Sure.
Hattie wasn't happy. A number of actors weren't happy with their roles. Hattie was not happy with her role because of the stereotype, but even more so was Butterfly McQueen, who played as Rhett referred to her,
but I have to
slow-witted darky.
I have to say, I thought she's a brilliant performer, Butterfly
Absolutely.
McQueen.
I agree.
She's a brilliant actress.
Too, absolutely.
She's a brilliant actress.
Yes.
That was the part. She played it better than anybody in the world could have played it. I think she was a great performer.
Now, you talking about Butterfly or Hattie?
Butterfly.
Oh, okay.
Within the limits of what she was allowed to do, she was a great performer. That's what she was given to do. She was effective.
Well, I do say, I mean, it's hard to watch.
Yes.
I'll admit that. And,
Absolutely.
you know, Hattie McDaniel, I have to say, does do a great job, and you do understand that character. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know Monique. Remember when she won her award, she won the same dress. And, you know, said something to the effect of, thank you for
because you
doing
think those who
what you
walked
did.
before us, that make us be able to do what we do.
So I don't have to go through it.
I really recommend people at home that you actually see Gone with the Wind for his historical content, also for its perspective filmically. It is shot beautifully. It does tell a story that aren't being told today, whether you like it historically or not. It brings you up to date, and it's something that we can look at about our history and what went on. That's the little bit of the darker parts, and especially in Hollywood. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming today and sharing about Gone with the Wind. 75 years, and I wonder what we'll be talking about in 100 years when it comes back out. So up next, singing chef Jackie Gordon will show us how to decorate a shrimp tree. Stay tuned for more Arise and Shine.